Hi, welcome everybody to CEU Executive MBA Moscow Open Day tonight. I'm Thomas Lamel, the Senior Program Manager, and I will guide you through this afternoon or evening. The first part will be the program presentation, followed by a meet and greet with a current participant. After the meet and greet with our current participant, you will have the chance to enjoy our keynote presentation by Professor Adam Savadovsky, and followed by a Q&A session in the end of this event. Feel free, if you have any questions, you can comment on Adam's keynote, of course, during his lecture or after his lecture. You can raise your hand, you can ask to unmute yourself, or you can just shoot in questions in the chat box. If you have any questions about the program, don't hesitate to ask us. We will collect your questions from the chat box, and I will answer them at the end of this event in the Q&A session. So let's get started. The problem you're facing these days is the general question if an MBA is still worth it. Because you don't have to go very far these days to encounter that we're witnessing fundamental transformations, the world in a century. In 2008, we've had a big financial crisis. In 2015, we've seen a large refugee crisis. And right now we're in the biggest pandemic in a century. And these changes are part of a much broader set of transformation that is taking place. And some of them are positive, of course, but some of them are pretty dangerous. So the key question is, how do we as business professionals, how do you as business professionals prepare for this challenging and unpredictable environment? And the obvious question is an MBA the way to do it? We have seen an explosion of online education over the last 2 years, and I will show you why we believe our MBA is worth it. So if you're interested in further MBA education, you usually start reaching for the stars, looking at the best business schools in the world, because you deserve the best education out there. What you find out there is that these leading business schools, mostly in the UK or in the US or in Switzerland, have a very differentiated mission-driven MBA curriculum. They offer a certain expertise or a certain perspective in their curriculum. The faculty you would find there is, of course, coming from the best universities in the world. And the faculty is pretty much international, at least in these institutions. So is the student body. The student body at these leading business schools is, because of the full-time format, mostly international. So you will have an international experience. What these mostly American universities offer is a real campus experience. It's not just a building somewhere in the center of a city. It's a campus with all the infrastructure, with all the services, and all the feeling that comes with being on a campus. But on the downside, these leading business schools offer programs starting at a tuition of 120,000 euro or even more of tuition, and they require you to leave your job for at least 1 year, sometimes even more than that, like 2 years. And of course, another problem that you might face is because you're leaving your job in order to live at a new MBA location, you might need to relocate your family as well. So if you contrast that with local MBA programs, which you would find as a consequence, because the leading business schools that I just mentioned might be too expensive for you or just too inconvenient for you, what you will find is a plain vanilla MBA curriculum. There is no certain expertise, there is no certain perspective, no mission. It's just a vanilla plain curriculum. The faculty that you would find in local programs is pretty much local, or at least regional. So there's no international exchange on the academic body on the faculty level. So is the student body. You won't find an international class in these programs, maybe just people from that city or that country or the region at most, but it's not an international format that you would that you would want and that you would deserve. Of course, tuition at these programs is cheaper than in the leading business schools, but still it's up to 80,000 euro on tuition and plus expenses, even for those business schools in the city you live in. But the good thing is that there is no work interruption. You can juggle your work life and your study life because it's an MBA in the same city that you live in.
Hello.
What we do at CEU is to offer the best of two worlds. First of all, there is no work interruption, thanks to the practical and flexible modular format. I will talk about the modules later. The executive MBA is mission-driven. Our executive MBA is very much mission-driven, because we offer the executive MBA for the open world. I will explain the MBA for the open world concept later. We have an international student body because of the modularity of the program. We are the second most international university in the world, according to the Times Higher Education. And this is being reflected on the student level, but also on the faculty level. All of our faculty are, first of all, it's a global faculty coming from basically from around the world. And our faculty have top credentials coming from the best universities, like the leading business schools that I mentioned before. All of our faculty are coming from the best universities, like Ivy League universities in the US, like Harvard, Princeton, MIT, Yale, Columbia, etc., etc. We offer a multi-campus experience in our program. It's a program that takes place in Central Europe, in Vienna, and in the CEE region, in Budapest. So you will be exposed to two approaches of internationality. And we offer that American campus experience that you are looking for when you're looking for American business schools. And last but not least, we offer the full program at only 29,000 euro of tuition. So again, it's another competitive advantage that we offer if you contrast this to the leading business schools, because we see ourselves at eye level with regard to academic excellence and quality, but at a lower tuition. I will talk about the reason why we're able to offer tuition at such low cost later. I already mentioned our international faculty, just to give you an impression of what I'm talking about. Just to show you an example, for economics, Mark Kaufmann, an expert in applied theory with a PhD from Harvard University. Or Professor Aisusenius with a PhD from Florida. She's an expert on marketing, especially emotional marketing. Leading scholars in the field in Europe with a Harvard PhD. If you're new to finance, Joy is a uniquely gifted educator. Generation after generation of our students tell us how she's just unique in explaining complex financial concepts and give you the language for you to speak to your stakeholders about finances and balance sheets. For leadership, Austin, our world-class psychologist with executive education experience on 4 continents, he will lead the way. He's a PhD from Florida as well. Or an expert with a PhD from London School of Economics, Professor Sofia Barani. She's an expert on the future of work. So she knows best about automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics, and will teach your module. Our faculty director, Professor Maciej Kiszlowski, with a JSD degree from Yale, an MBA from INSEAD, and an MPA from Princeton University. He's an expert on non-market strategy and regulatory issues. For strategy, you'll have Yusuf Akbar, who has taught in more than 40 countries and advises leading Fortune 500 companies. And just to give you an impression of our visiting faculty that we invite to teach you, we invite the best experts in the world from the most reputable universities to teach you. For example, Christian Seelos, an innovation expert from Stanford University, or Professor Miklos Savary, a digital marketing expert from Columbia University, Professor Omar Hernandez, an expert on operations management from Berkeley Haas Business School, Professor Hui Chen from the University of Zurich in Switzerland, or Professor Paula Caproni from the University of Michigan. This is just a little overview of the visiting faculty, just to give you an impression of who we are inviting to teach your classes. So here's what the program looks like. As you can see, it's a 10-module program. The dates you see on the screen are not going to change. So you can basically plan your studying around professional and family activities based on these dates. As you can see, we have 3 modules in the first year, which is the top row. In the second year, we have 4 modules and 3 in the third year, which gives you flexibility and balance in your life. As you might have noticed, we are piggybacking around popular European holidays like November 1st or May 1st or August 15th, when it's easier for you to take time off because of holidays in most parts of Europe, at least. In the summers, which is the center column, our bespoke and cutting-edge leadership program takes place in Budapest, and you will have the opportunity to benefit from the electives from the faculty in the world we invite to teach your classes. Just to give you some context on the modules that we're going to teach you, first of all, the big picture module, it's going to be the start of your journey with us. It's going to provide you the bigger picture, to understand the bigger picture of what's going on in the world right now with regard to business and political surroundings. We do offer other modules like the finance module or big data and technology management, strategy, marketing and consumer behavior, managing operations strategically, innovation and entrepreneurship, and 3 summer modules which solely deal with leadership. That's the common thread of this whole program, is to make you better leaders. So one day there will come the day when you finish with us and you will join CEU alumni from around the world. Currently, we have an elite network of more than 18,000 professional alumni all over the world. As I already said, CEU is the 2nd most international university in the world, and you can rely on an active elite network on every continent. We have city-level chapters, we have country-level chapters. Basically, wherever you are in the world, you will find CEU alumni to interact with. Or if you're planning to move somewhere else, you can easily reach out to our alumni relations department for structured alumni outreach. Or if you want to reach out on an informal level, feel free to reach out to our groups on social media. We have this American-driven approach in networking, so it's easy for you to reach out and make new friends. If you're looking for people from the same industry, from a certain company or organization, or just people in a specific city that you want to meet because you're moving somewhere else and you don't know anybody yet, that's the perfect network. And this is a network that you can count on, and one of the key assets that we have. So the question is, how are we able to offer such a high quality program at only 29,000 euro? As I already said, we're at eye level with the best universities in the world, with the most reputable universities in the world like Harvard and Princeton and Columbia, but we're cheaper as far as tuition is concerned. We're more competitive. The answer lies in our founder and benefactor, George Soros, who created CEU with the mission to promote open society. And just recently, George Soros made another contribution to CEU's mission by offering another $1 billion, billion with a B, in endowment to create the Open Society University Network, which means we are the best endowed university in Europe. So what does the Executive MBA for the Open World mean? What makes CEU unique compared to other programs? First of all, when we talk about the open world, we mean skepticism towards hierarchies, towards dogmas and privileges, both in context of how we teach, but also in composition of the cohort. Diversity is key to creating a successful program, and for us, it's part of our DNA and not just an empty marketing catchphrase. Secondly, we believe in debates and radical rational thinking. Every idea can be challenged. We believe in facts and arguments rather than narratives and fake news, because it's narratives and fake news that create polarization in our societies these days. We believe the best way to challenge this narrative-based discourse is to make arguments based on facts and realities, which is the hallmark of Karl Popper's definition of open societies. We are fundamentally opposed to all kinds of discrimination. We cherish diversity and we actively promote diversity within our program. And the way we finance the scholarship means we create opportunities for people who traditionally have not been able to actually join programs like this. And we see managers not just as people who deal with businesses and resources, but we also believe that managers go beyond that. Whatever your position is, whatever your professional or academic background is, whatever your position in your company is, wherever you're coming from, you are a positive change agent in this context. So what does the CEU Executive MBA classroom look like? Currently, we have 65 managers with 14 years of work experience, including a minimum of 3 years of leadership/managerial experience. As you can see from the background image, we use state-of-the-art classroom technology and setups in order to facilitate lively discussion and interaction in class. We make use of case-based learning rather than traditional lectures that you would find in local MBA programs, because we want to take you, experts in your very field, in your specific field, from that level of functional expertise to the strategic level. We also offer top quality online experience. Every participant can flexibly choose if they want to join online. They can do it, they can basically do the whole program online or on site, or they can just opt in for single modules if they want to do it online. We encourage everybody to attend our program on site because it's just the better learning experience. Nothing compares to on-site education, to interacting with your lecturers, to interacting with your fellows, to do the socializing part, to have lunch and dinner together, to engage in social activities after class. But if you want to join online, feel free to do it. We have invested heavily in studio-grade microphones, capturing the lecturer, but not only the lecturer, but also your participants. For us, education is not just a one-way street from the lecturer, from your teacher to the student, but also going back from the student, from the participant to the lecturers, and among fellows themselves. We have invested in large screens and high-quality cameras in order to offer you the best online experience if you choose to participate online. We have created physical virtual breakout rooms for support teams. Support teams are basically the groups that you will be assigned in, and we take the diversity argument very seriously in that context, because you will be placed in support teams with people not coming from the same country, not coming from the same professional background, and not coming from the same linguistic background. Because we think that the learning experience, the diversity factor really kicks in when you're exposed to people with different learning techniques, with different solution-making approaches and different debate styles. We have created, for that reason, virtual backgrounds. As you can see, a color code. From the color codes here, you can tell who belongs to which support team. So it helps you to understand when you're joining online, or if your participants, if your fellows join online, it's easier for you to follow the interaction, the debate in class, and to allocate who said what in a debate. We offer high quality support, individual support on every level that you're with us. From the level of inquiring about the program with me, to actually applying for the program, to enrolling into the program, or being a student, a participant in the program, or becoming an alumni, or being an alumni, we offer quick and individual support for whatever you need. So as I already said, tuition is only 29,000 euro. Thanks to our financial endowment, we're passing on this financial endowment through lower and more competitive tuition to our participants. As I said, you can, there's an online option. You can flexibly decide if you want to join online, if traveling is inconvenient, if there is any travel restriction, or if you have an underlying health conditions, or whatever your reason is, you can flexibly opt in for online education. In order to defray your other costs of the program, we have special rates at partner hotels and discounts. We have negotiated discount rates with partner hotels both in Vienna and Budapest, ranging from the budget level to luxury level. And we have negotiated discount rates with partner airlines like Lufthansa Group and Austrian Airlines to bring you to Vienna and Budapest at a lower cost. So we invite you to join the open world. The application deadline is March 27th, and the application starts online on our website. It's a fully online application. I strongly encourage you, despite of the application deadline in March, I strongly encourage you to apply as soon as possible, because we have a first come, first served policy. And the sooner you apply, the sooner you're able to reserve your study seat. You're already invited to book one individual one-on-one consultation with me if you have any questions about the program, the application, or any financial support. Feel free to have a personalized meeting with me online, and I would be happy to advise you on your questions. So I think it's one thing to hear about the program from the program office, from us, because I think you realize that we're perfectly committed and passionately committed about the program and really convinced about the strengths of the program. But it's another thing to hear about the program from people who are actually in the program right now. And I would like to introduce you to our current participant, to Vadim. He's joining us online. Vadim, thank you very much for joining us today. If you could briefly introduce yourself, like what is your academic background, what is your professional background, to our audience, so they know where you're coming from, you know, what your background is.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm very, very happy to be part of this journey with Ceu and to be sharing my experience with the fellow participants. I am based in the Republic of Moldova. I come from Moldova. I was born here. And I'm MBA 23 student, which means that we started last year. I enrolled a bit later than everybody because I decided later. I started in August, and we had already have 2 modules passed, and we are looking forward for the 3rd one, which will be in 2 months from now. Yeah, just to keep it short, what I did, I'm coming from consulting. My background is agriculture development. Coming from consulting, currently I'm working for a state agency which is dealing with agriculture, implementing some projects to empower farmers in Moldova to get to a next level of development. I do have some background at a publicly listed company as a head of product. It's an FMCG product, wines. Some of the participants here might be familiar with that, Purcari. And in the past, I was a member of the Moldova Fruit Association, which is a national association of fruit producers. The members of this association are producing and exporting between 40 and 60% of the total volume of products. So I headed the marketing department in that association.
Thank you very much for the brief introduction. If you could tell us, like, why did you decide for CEU Executive MBA? What is your personal motivation to join us?
For me, it happened very, very fast. I woke up one day and I realized that I need a change. I need to change something, and I was thinking in my head, what should I do to improve what I feel. And I realized that I do have some knowledge, or I still have that knowledge in my background. I know a lot of things, but there was missing a structure in my knowledge. And I said, okay, probably I need to structure that, but I will not manage to do it by myself, or I will, but I'm not sure if it will be correct or not. So I said, okay, I need some kind of formal studies which will validate my knowledge, or will probably improve what I know, or will help me to structure what I do. And I don't regret it. I started to Google what is an MBA? Should I do it or should not? That's when I found it in a couple of days that there is an option for executive MBA, which is which would not require me to quit my job and move away from the country. And that fitted excellent for me, because I cannot quit my job. I need that income, I need to feed a family. The formula which I found that Ceu was a perfect match for me. It was exactly, I am not paid for this interview now, and Thomas was saying that they are offering some experience, and I can confirm that, because we had 2 modules until now. One was in Budapest and one was in Vienna, and the experience is really great. I mean, my group, my fellow MBA students, they are from all over the world. I have in my working group, which we do after modules, I have one colleague from Canada, one from Germany, one from Brussels, from me, and one from Bulgaria. In previous working group, I had one from Russia and one from Canada. We changed it because the time frames were different, too different. So somebody had to be awake at 4 o'clock if we had a meeting, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the experience is really great. I do think that I made the right choice, because my structure started, my mind started to get the structure which I was hoping for. I had a meeting yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago, with my group online. We discussed a lot of things. The university is open for inputs from the students, so we can come up with our ideas, where whenever we have a proposal, they are open to discuss it. Why I chose EMBA from Ceu is because they were very fast in answering and offering their support and providing what I was requesting. Very, very receptive, and everybody helped me in my case. And also the financial, I mean, the tuition was very, very attractive. And yeah, that's the.
Thank you very much. I think I mean, it's a coincidence that you started your, mentioning your background on your motivation with your hits on Google, because this is kind of where I started my program presentation, and you didn't know my presentation. So if you're looking for a program, you usually start, Googling, reaching for the stars, because you want to go to the best universities in the world, of course. And you ask yourself, is an MBA still worth it, basically? And I hope I showed you why we believe that our MBA is still worth it. You mentioned, I took some notes during your talk. You mentioned rightly, correctly, that there is no work disruption. I just wanted to emphasize on that. You will stay in your job, and you can do the modules beside your job. So it's 3 modules on average per year around popular European holidays. So it's easy for you to have a long weekend in the module, and the rest of the year you can focus on your job. There's no work disruption. The second part that you mentioned that I would like to add is the international format. You mentioned people coming from around the world. We have people flying in from as far as away as Vancouver, Canada, in the west, and as far as away as Vladivostok in Russia from the east. We have 2 Australians in the program, 1 person from South Africa, and of course many people from the US and Europe and the Middle East. But for us, diversity not only refers to nationalities, to be precise. different nationalities is an asset to the program. But in addition to different nationalities, those people offer different professional backgrounds as well. So we have people coming from the regular, let's call it the traditional corporate world, but we also have people coming from the public sector. We have people coming with medical engineers, we have engineers, we have medical doctors in the program. We even have artists in the program, or people coming from the NGO field, the civil rights movement, or entrepreneurship. So it's a really diverse program, not as far as nationalities is concerned, of course, but also with regard to professional backgrounds in class. And this is where you really benefit from being in the support teams, of being exposed to so much diversity. And the last thing that I would like to add is, you mentioned the reputation of the university. We are at eye level with, you know, the best universities in the world as far as academic excellence is concerned. But we offer something in addition that leading business schools in the US don't offer, which is a double degree, which is valid in the US and the EU, because we think that you are the most people who are joining us today are interested to work on the international, on the global level. And just one degree doesn't help you, because you can, you know, either you have a European degree if you attended a program in Europe, or you have an American degree if you attended a program in the US. But CEU Executive MBA, because we're registered in New York and Vienna, offers a double degree in the US and the EU, which is another huge advantage if you want to move to the global strategic level. I mean, there's nothing more to add to what you've said, Vadim. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much. I would like to move to the next part, to the main act of tonight, which is our keynote presentation by Professor Adam Savadovsky. Just to give you an example of who Professor Adam Savadovsky is, he's got a master's degree in engineering physics. He's got a master's degree in economics. He's got a PhD in economics from Princeton University. His research topics are financial frictions, attention allocation, liquidity, credit default swaps, and financial networks. And he will talk about Bitcoin, a bubble to burst, a very zeitgeisty keynote presentation. Thank you very much, Adam, for joining us tonight. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I hope you can hear me well.
Perfect.
I really enjoy teaching in Executive MBA, so I wanted to give you a bit of an idea of what a lecture looks like in the program. So I took an interesting issue that might be on your mind, or based on the news, or whatever you're yourself investing in might be interesting. Is Bitcoin something you should follow or invest in, or is it a bubble that will burst and you should definitely stay away from it? So this is the basic idea I want to get at. And to give you an idea, going through the title, there are several words here which I think are important to clarify. You know, what is a bubble? What is Bitcoin? You know, what does Bitcoin really look like in terms of being an asset? Is Bitcoin really a bubble? Will it burst if it's a bubble? And in the end, of course, what you want to take away is Bitcoin something I should invest in? So I also prepared a little poll I'll launch. So if you would like to, you can fill in this poll, and maybe we can get back to it a bit later. Okay, so I launched a poll. You can feel free to answer it, and later on I'll maybe get back to it. I'm just interested in before telling you what I think, and before getting into our discussion, I was interested in what you think. So meanwhile, I'll go on. So what is a bubble? First of all, let's just define it while you do your poll. The bubble is when prices go up very fast, relatively fast, sometimes over years, and then they drop substantially and stay at the lower level for a longer period. So for example, the most famous bubble being the bubble that led up to the Great Depression. In 32, it started dropping. The stock market index in a few years, it went down by 90%. Okay, so this is a substantial drop here that we have. Another famous bubble that you might have heard about it is the dot-com bubble. Okay, the dot-com bubble is stocks in the US that built on technology and the internet. And again, what you see, huge run up and then a big burst, again, a huge drop of around 80%. A lot of people lost their retirement savings on this bubble. So really, what is a bubble? Textbook definition is that the price of the assets, in this case stocks, is not does not reflect their real economic value. Okay, so assets are substantially overvalued. Okay, meanwhile, I got some more answers here. Let me end the poll here, and then I can just tell you a bit about what results we got. So my first question was, do you think Bitcoin is a bubble? And here about 2/3 of participants said that they believe it's a bubble. So let's see what I think, and let's see whether we agree. Do you think Bitcoin will burst? And here 2/3 said it's not going to burst, even though it is a bubble. Okay, so very interesting result here. And have you ever invested in Bitcoin? It seems that this group is averse to Bitcoin. We don't have any participant who invested in Bitcoin. Okay, so I think this is a very good starting point for our discussion. So let's see whether you change your mind by the end of the talk or we stick to the same views. What are big historical bubbles? I show you two, but going back historically, it starts with tulips in the Netherlands, South Sea bubble in England, railroad, Japanese bubble economy, and then the tech bubble, and recently the US housing bubble. Why is this a problem if we have bubbles in the economy? Because there's a lot of wasteful investment in these cases. If railroads are overvalued, we'll build a lot of railroads that will not be used later on. What joins these? This seems to be an eclectic mix of things. Tulips, South Sea, trade with India, railroad, Japan, dot-com, housing. You know, what connects these? And it turns out what really connects these episodes, it's something new. It's a new asset class. Okay, housing was not new. I mean, housing has been around forever. In terms, housing was new as it was financed through a specific financial instrument, mortgage-backed security, which was new. So there's always something new. Japan was not new, but Japan becoming a leading economy was kind of something new back then. So there's always something new, something we haven't seen before. So in that sense, Bitcoin can be a good candidate for a bubble because it's something completely new. So what exactly is Bitcoin? And let me just update you on that. You probably know Bitcoin is a kind of currency that is not printed by governments. It's in a limited supply, unlike paper money, which is printed by the US government, and you could increase the supply as much as you want. There are miners, computers solving different kind of riddles and getting kind of mining new Bitcoins for that. As most currencies, it's not something productive. So you're not investing in a stock if you buy Bitcoin, which then through which you're investing in a company which produces something. So Bitcoin directly doesn't produce anything. But if you looked at returns, historical US stocks have given you 11.6% return over almost 80 years. Bitcoin over its existence in the last 10 years has up to the end of 2020, there has been a price drop since then, has given you on average per year 911%. That's crazy high return. So if you invested in Bitcoin in the beginning, you are crazy rich. Okay, the question is, okay, now going forward, is this something that should you still invest in Bitcoin? So the first question is, okay, Bitcoin could be a bubble because it's new. Another typical thing of bubbles is there's a lot of trading and a lot of hype around them, and that's true for Bitcoin as well. Regarding the price graph, yeah, you do see bubbly behavior, like big ups and then big crashes, and then more recently again a big up and the crash, and another up and the crash. So the maximum was around 68,000, which is down to around 35,000 right now. So in that sense, it looks a bit bubbly. And in fact, in the past, it has been like that. So if you look back in 2013, you don't even see that on this graph. It's basically Bitcoin price was so low. We are talking about Bitcoin increasing from $100 to over $1,000 and then crashing back. So again, this behavioral is very typical of bubbles. So if you just look at the price behavioral, it seems bubbly. You know, what is a similar asset which behaves also very similarly with big run-ups and crashes? Run-up, crash, again, run-up, crash, gold. In fact, gold is very, very similar to Bitcoin, both in its price behavior and in the sense that it has very limited supply. Basically, you have to mine there, you have to physically mine new supplies. So the supply is quite, you know, it's not that governments can print more gold. It has to be mined, and it's very limited how much we can mine. And it also is not a productive asset most of the time. I mean, yes, some electronics use some gold, but it's not a big deal. Most of it is held in the safes of banks or, you know, as jewelry. And it's not used in production. Unlike if you invest in a stock, for example, or you buy a house, which can be used, you know, to live in or to produce things in the house. So gold seems very similar in that sense. So if you think about why do people buy gold, they buy it most of the time as a store of value. So they think this is something that the governments can't deal with. It cannot generate inflation. Sorry, inflation is not going to touch gold because the governments cannot print more of it. So in that sense, it looks very similar to Bitcoin as an asset to invest in. So based on this, we can say, yes, it seems like Bitcoin is a bubble, but gold is also a bubble in some sense, okay? So it's not unheard of that something is a bubble. Bitcoin by definition is a bubble because it has no fundamental value, but gold, money, collectibles, artwork, stamps, they're all bubbles as well, okay? They have no productive use, really. People invest in it because they think it's something that others will buy from them later on. So we now understand that Bitcoin looks like gold in some sense and to currency. So look at the amount of US dollar currency in circulation. It's around $2 trillion. The value of all gold that has ever been mined on Earth is $10 trillion. All the Bitcoin, which around the peak was around 60,000, was worth 1 trillion. Do we think that Bitcoin can really overtake gold as the main inflation protected bubbly asset that people invest in? Well, gold has been around for thousands of years. Bitcoin is new. Is it going to completely overtake gold? And is Bitcoin going to be worth tens of or hundreds of trillions of dollars? Doesn't seem very likely. Okay. So the market cap for Bitcoin, in my personal view, you know, it cannot go above a few $1 trillion. And my feeling is that it has pretty much hit the ceiling and bounced back. You know, it could go up to 5 trillion, you know, that means a huge price increase still, but it cannot continue going up 900% per year going forward many years ahead. So should you invest in it? Well, if you invest in gold, you can say gold as a hedging asset, saying that, look, I'm investing in the long term because gold will protect me from inflation. Yeah, it might make sense to invest a few percent of your portfolio in gold. Should you speculate? Should you speculate in Bitcoin? Well, speculation, there's a lot of evidence that small traders lose in speculation. So there's no evidence that me or you, as small traders can win on speculating, that is buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling. It doesn't really work out. It's a long-term investment. Yes, you can consider it. You can consider it along gold or real estate or anything. What is the concern that you might have in this case? Well, what I told you, it's not a productive asset, and it takes a lot of energy to mine it. So if you have any environmental concerns, you can say, okay, my portfolio will be a little bit better by adding Bitcoin, my investment portfolio, or gold. Yes, but both gold and Bitcoin use a lot of energy and a lot of resources to be mined. So if you're thinking about, okay, I want to invest in something that's environmentally friendly, or at least not terrible for the environment, this graph that the energy use used to mine Bitcoin, the energy use is probably above 100 terawatt hours per year, should make you think, okay, this is the consumption, the electrical consumption of a bigger country. Okay, is this really the best use of electricity that we can think of? Okay, so thank you. This was my presentation. I don't know, Thomas will let us know whether we can open up for questions right now or how we proceed.
Sure, I collected some questions that people dropped me in direct messaging. One question, very interesting, is what's the realistic use of Bitcoin for individual companies or organizations?
So for companies, I don't necessarily see the use. You could use it as currency, means of exchange, but a lot of companies are pulling out of it. What's the reason? If you use it as a medium of exchange, like money, I mean, it is like a money-like asset in some sense, it has to be stable in value. And there's one thing Bitcoin is not, it's not stable. And I don't see how companies would want long-term investment. It's typically investors saving for their retirement or endowments that are looking into long-term investment and are considering gold in their long-term portfolio. Yes.
How do you see the social impact of Bitcoin? Speaking of an opportunity for tax avoidance, speaking of the opportunity for black money, money laundering, or even financing terrorism through a cryptocurrency, because anonymity is like one of its key assets. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think experts are a bit mixed on how anonymous Bitcoin really is and how much you can track down transactions. Some people say that you can. I'm not an expert on the technology itself. I'm more thinking of it as a financial asset. Yes, I would be concerned about these things, not only the environmental concern, but the concern that if it can be used anonymously, then it's going to be used like the 500 euro bills, which is perfect for anonymous big volume transactions and has been abandoned for this reason. That's why they don't print 500 euro bills anymore. Very, very valid concern. One thing I forgot to wrap up here at the end, that in the end, I do agree with the majority of the participants that yes, Bitcoin is a bubble. Whether it will burst or not, personally, I think probably yes, but there's no guarantee. I mean, gold didn't burst. A lot of collectibles are not bursting, so it's not guaranteed that it will burst in the near future, but it could. Yeah, so that I wanted to wrap up with that. Any other questions that came up?
Yeah. What's your take on the different cryptocurrencies? It's not just Bitcoin that is, I mean, Bitcoin is just the most prominent one, but there's dozens of others like Ethereum or, what's your take on this? Is it quite...
I think from a they might be slightly different on the and the underlying technology, but I think from a finance viewpoint, either as a medium of exchange or as an investment, all of them are very similar. So fundamentally, they're all the same in my view from a financial standpoint.
And I think that the Bitcoin, there's a limit on the total number of Bitcoin that is applicable or even reachable. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, 21 billion or trillion. I'm not sure about the number, so please correct me. How does that affect the commodity, like knowing that there's a limitation at a certain pound? I mean, of course, gold has a limitation too, but we don't know the limitation of gold. We can only estimate how much gold is left, you know, in this mother Earth. But with Bitcoin, we actually already know that limitation. How's that going to affect its value and the inflation?
So that's a very good question. Yes, indeed, there is a limit on how many Bitcoins will be mined. And in fact, you know, there's an increasing amount in the beginning and then slowing down. I didn't put in that graph. The limit is in number of Bitcoins. It's not in terms of US dollars, because of course, if one Bitcoin is worth a lot, then in US dollar terms, that's going to be worth a lot. But the same for gold. Whether or not, you know, as in case of gold, basically we have a steadily increasing amount of gold outstanding as it's being mined, or whether basically the amount available is fixed, is not going to have strong implications, as the amount of gold that's being mined, it's deterministic, it's relatively slow growth, so it doesn't give you a big difference. Of course, in the Middle Ages, there was inflation due to a lot of gold being mined, but then there's really a big jump in the amount of gold outstanding. That doesn't seem possible currently. It's more like a small, steady growth. The main point here is that the governments cannot basically intervene and print lots of gold or print a lot of Bitcoin, while there's nothing technically that could stop the US government from printing 10 times as much dollars as they have right now. Okay, both for Bitcoin and gold, this is out of question. And in that sense, they're very similar.
And what is your interpretation on this development that we've seen in the past, that trade blocs or economic partnerships try to get rid of, you know, currencies? Like, I mean, the most prominent example is the Eurozone. The national states wanted to get rid of all the individual currencies and created the euro. There have been regional plans of regional trade blocs to introduce only the dollar or an African franc in some African countries. How do you see that? Is that a contradiction to now an explosion of currencies, or, you know, what's your take on this?
So there you're really touching the question is really touching on monetary questions. You know, what's the best monetary policy for economies that do trade with each other? Of course, having common currency is always good for trade. It's easier to trade. On the other hand, having common currency means that, you know, whatever monetary policy is good for the south of Europe is not good for the north. So you also you have to balance this two things. So there's you know, having a separate currency for every small country is not worth it. Having one currency for all the world will not work. You have to be somewhere in between. What's the ideal size of the blocks that should have the same currency? Let me not go into monetary economics there. If you join the MBA, there will be classes on this kind of more macro view of monetary policy, and I'm sure the instructors will be happy to go more into details here.
You just mentioned one world currency. Let's talk about this utopist idea. You mentioned that it's not ideal, I think, if that was your quote. Is it a political agenda, or from the economic point of view, it's not ideal? What's your...
It's from an economic point of view. So interest rates have to be set according to economic conditions, and local economic conditions within Austria, for example, are quite uniform. But even within Europe, they're not uniform, and that strains the euro. But they are definitely very different between Europe and South America, for example. So the same interest rate and so on will not work for Europe and South America, unless there's a world government which is sending huge amounts of money around trying to stabilize the economy, which is, let's put it mildly, is not very likely.
I mean, as we can see in the Eurozone, it's quite difficult to have these this allocation. You know, you mentioned the North, the South, the you know, all these different interests that we have between, you know, France and Germany, just to pick the most prominent poles here in this discussion. So I agree with you that on the global level, it's just not realistic, not only as far as politics is concerned, but also with regard to economic consequences. Thank you, Adam, so much for this keynote presentation. If you want to listen to more lectures like this, feel free to apply for the Executive MBA. You will have more in-depth lectures on very different topics. And in view of the time, I would like to move to the next and final chapter of this event. Thank you very much, Adam. I would like to move on to the general Q&A session. I've collected your questions that I have received in the chat box and in direct messaging. And the first question is basically the elephant in the room, which is the COVID situation. How are we dealing with the COVID pandemic? So first of all, the COVID pandemic, of course, hit us very strongly because we're a university, and you know, education until the pandemic was pretty much based on on-site education. It revolved on, you know, interaction in class, on-site, on physical presence. Of course, this has changed in the meantime, but we encourage everybody to opt in for on-site education, especially in times of vaccinations and more treatments available against COVID. We encourage you to join us on site because it's just the better learning experience. And to be honest, it's just more fun. You know, online education is more than just watching a video on YouTube on any given subject. It's about the parts that you will not hear in class. It's about lunch breaks. It's about having coffees together. It's about social interactions after class. It's about having dinner together, going out, you know, all that stuff that it's not part of the official program. As far as COVID implications are concerned, we have hosted every single module but one during the pandemic on site under very high safety instructions. We only did one module fully online, which we did because it was a government regulation. It was by law. We were enforced to do it online, but all other modules took place on site. When I mentioned the highest safety precautions, let me give you an example. We still test everybody. We do an antigen testing of every on-site participant when you're in class at the module every second day. Not because we're super afraid of a cluster or whatever, because most people are vaccinated already. But there's another thing to it. We don't want you to travel to Vienna or Budapest and be in a setting that might cause inconvenience for you. Because in some countries, or at least in Austria and Hungary, there have been in rules that you would need to move into quarantine for 5 or even 10 days after being tested positive. We don't want to cause this inconvenience for you, so we are offering a test every second day during the module. By the way, we have done this for the first time in October 2020, when we were the first university to actually offer broad antigen testing for teaching. I mean, it's just incredible to think of. It's not long ago. In October 2020, antigen testing was not the standard, or PCR testing was not the standard procedure for events or for education. Another question that I have received is the question, are there any exams and is there a thesis? First of all, our assessment approach is very much American driven. So you will be in a module, you will attend a module, and your grade does not solely depend on one exam. It will depend on several factors: class attendance, interaction in class, group papers, group presentations, and even 360-degree peer evaluation, as we call it, which means you will be evaluated by your fellows and you will evaluate your fellows as well. So we encourage everybody to evaluate their fellows based on their interaction in class. It's not enough to just, from time to time, just open your mouth and say anything, because your fellows would evaluate this and would assess you based on your comments in class. Most of the modules don't have classical traditional exams because we don't want you to travel to Vienna and sit in class for 3 or 6 hours to take an exam. You will be in the module, and after the module you'll go home to your to a destination of your choice, and you will have a time frame of 10 days to 2 weeks for an open book exam to do that exam online. Of course, once you start the exam, you have to finish it in one go, but it's up to you to decide when you want to take that exam. For some people, it might be better to do it at night if you have children. Some people want to take it on the weekends. Some people want to do it during office hours. It's up to you when you're going to do that exam. And only 2 of our modules have traditional exams, which are the quantitative modules like finance and accounting. Of course, with those modules, we need some kind of written exam, which, as I already said, can be done online after your module. The second part of the question was, is there a thesis? The clear answer is no. We don't want to waste your time. You're busy executives. You don't have much time on your hands. We don't want to waste your time attending the modules, and after attending all the modules, spending your time in libraries doing research, writing papers, do empirical data collection and stuff like that, because you don't have the time and the nerve to do that. So the thing that we came up with is a so-called Capstone project that you would be dealing with over the 2 years of the whole program. And the strategic approach of this Capstone project is that it deals with a concrete problem or a concrete solution that you want to tackle and that you have in your current organization or in your current professional background that you want to work on with experts from the faculty that we offer. This is a very practical approach, and it does not waste your time, because at the time with the last module, with completing the 10th module, you will be graduating with us and you will be done with the program. That's not going to be a thesis after the program. Another question that I have received is the question, what are the application requirements and what does the application process look like? Let's start with the application requirements before we get into the process. We do offer an overview of the formal criteria on our website, but I'm happy to share that information with you right now. We are looking for executives with at least 8 years of work experience. We can make exceptions for people with less than 8 years of work experience, but as exceptions work, only on an exceptional basis. So you would need to make a case and would need to argue why you would still be eligible for the program, even if you're not having 8 years of work experience. We do offer exceptions, for example, for younger people who are serial entrepreneurs. This has happened before, but of course, this needs to be a justified case. Another requirement is a university degree, which can be in any kind of field of study. So we have people coming, applying for the program with a medical degree. We have people coming for an application with an engineering or technical degree. We have people in the program with a business degree, or even with an artistic and liberal arts degree. You're welcome to join, to apply for the Executive MBA. Again, we can make exceptions if you don't have an undergraduate degree, but This needs to be an exceptional basis again, and you would need to argue why you would still be eligible for the executive MBA without a university degree. We have seen executives who have not finished university for very important reasons, but who managed to have a career afterwards in the organizations, in the companies. Of course, this needs to be explained to us. Other formal criteria involve a proof of English. If you're a native speaker, or if your degree, the university degree was fully taught in English, you're exempt from that proof of English, of course. But all other people need to do the IELTS or TOEFL or Duolingo, which it's a very convenient way, can be done online now. There is a home test for TOEFL, which you can basically take anytime you want to check that box. Of course, you would need documents like a CV and motivation letter. I think the CV is self-explanatory. In the motivation letter, I always give the recommendation that people should not only focus on what the executive MBA, how the executive MBA benefits their career and how they would benefit from the executive MBA. Also, feel free to show us, to explain to us how your fellow students, how your lecturers could benefit from your participation. What are you bringing to the table? Is it an expertise in a very specific field? Is it an expertise in a specific country? Is it, whatever your background is, explain to us why we should admit you to the program. So let's talk about the process. Assuming that you meet all the formal criteria, you will start your application via our website. It's an online application. Once you have submitted and completed all the required data, we will check your application for completeness and correctness. We will get in touch with you if there are any documents missing or if you need to clarify on things. Assuming that this stage has been passed, you will be invited to an online interview where we will ask you about your individual motivation, your leadership style, and your personality. We're not going to play mind games. We're not going to ask silly questions in that interview. We only have that limited time to get to know you, and we are using that wisely. Out of transparency, we published the questionnaire that we use in the interviews on our website. So you can basically go on our website and have a look at the questionnaire that we are going to use in the interview. So you get a better understanding and a better feeling on where are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. So you can better prepare for the interview. Assuming that the interview was successful, we will present you your case to an admission committee, because all of our participants are handpicked. And assuming that stage has been passed, you will receive an admission decision only in a couple of weeks. We're trying as best as we can to provide a very prompt admission decision to you, because we know that executives need to plan ahead and that you don't want to wait for a decision months and months. One question I have received online is the question on leadership. What is the role and the importance of leadership in the program? Very clear answer. Leadership has plays a very strong role in our program. 3 of the 10 modules solely deal with leadership, with making good decisions, with making better decisions and better life, better culture. This is a major part and a common thread of the whole program. It's elevating you from the level of functional expertise to the strategic level. And this requires very much leadership skills that we are going to teach in the summer modules. And in view of the time, I would like to move to the last question. If there is any financial support. Yes, even though we have a very competitive tuition at only 29,000 euro compared to other business schools, the best leading business schools in the world, we're pretty competitive. we offer, in addition to that, we offer financial support. Feel free to book a one-on-one consultation with me to get advice on individual scholarships and individual fellowships, because we offer so much fellowships and scholarships, scholarship programs, that this is not the best opportunity to talk about all these fellowships and scholarships. But for example, since we're in Russia today, in Moscow, we offer a fellowship for Russian businesswomen. So if you're interested in that fellowship as well, get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to advise you on that fellowship, on the conditions, and on your application for that fellowship, on how to optimize your application, not just for the program, but also for the fellowship. In view of the time, I would like to conclude the open day. I would like to thank Vadim for joining us tonight. I would like to thank Adam Savadovsky for joining us tonight. I would like to say thanks to our local partner, to Advantage Austria here in Moscow, for hosting us tonight. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to book a one-on-one consultation with me, and let's take it from there. Good night. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.